the when I was speaking to one of my clients who works at a medium-sized entity, and I asked him, what his cash conversion cycle was, and he said he didn't bother because he thought that was only a ratio that only meant something to MNCs, and that's not correct. I think every entity needs to know what its cash conversion cycle is, track it. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? How are you relative to your customers? I'm sorry, to your competitors, and your industry as a whole. So what it does, it measures the efficiency of your conversion of raw materials, inventory, and receivables into cash. So the formula is, and I'm not going to go into the specifics of each element here because it could depend on your country's accounting policies. But if you take your days inventory outstanding and you add your days sales outstanding, and you subtract it from the payables outstanding, that gives you that's part of the formula for determining the cash conversion cycle. So the inventory and sales produce cash, so fast is better. Payables is cash outflow. So as Alex said before, slow is better. And this conversion cycle is measured in days. So the closer to 0, the better, or a negative number is even better than that. And of course, as we said, it can range by industry. Thanks. So I'm just using this as an example. My company, and this is not, this is not real. It was just an example. So my days inventory outstanding was 53 days. My sales outstanding was 36, and my payables was 66. So you take the inventory and the sales outstandings, which comes to 88, and you deduct from that the 89, and deduct from that the payables outstanding. So that's a positive number. That's positive 23, which means that on average, I'm having to pay my suppliers 23 days before I'm getting paid. So that's not great. So we're going to take a look at some noteworthy cash conversion cycle examples. I think you'll find these interesting. Oh, sorry, I think I'm going to skip one. No, okay, all right. So let's look at this. You can put the whole screen up, Alex, if you want. Probably best in class at this. Their cash conversion cycle is estimated at 53 days. So that was actually at the end of 2019. Given the struggles that they've had with COVID, that may not be accurate anymore. But so at the end of last year, they were negative 53, which is probably the best. And then you see Samsung's was a positive 78. Okay, huge difference between the two of them. So what this means is Samsung is paying its suppliers almost 2.5 months before it's actually collecting. So they're carrying all that debt, all that debt for almost 2.5 months. Why the difference? Okay, very simply, Apple does retail sales, so their sales outstanding are very fast. They're getting paid at point of sale. Inventory, very quick. Efficient planners. They use contract manufacturing, so they don't have a lot of bricks and mortars, and they buy enormous volumes of similar products with long life cycles, and their vendors love them. Samsung, not so much. They rely on a distributor network and third-party vendors. They have a wide array of products and components, and it's really hard for their vendors to get scale. So their DPO is much more difficult to leverage. But this just sort of gives, I think, a really interesting example of how two entities are very different with their cash conversion cycle. My point is that you can look at this, you can track your own, and you should do it at least on a quarterly basis and see which direction you're heading and what you might be able to do about it. You probably have some banks or some other supply chain finance program folks who can help you with that, especially if it's getting worse. So, okay. Yeah, so here, this is the slide I thought we would see before. Here are 5 noteworthy cash conversion cycles. It surprised me, actually. Ford, for a total brick company, at -12, I thought was a good number. Amazon, I thought would be better than that. I was really surprised with Exxon. Walmart used to be best in class and not so much anymore. And then the big shocker here is General Electric. So they are paying their suppliers 4 months before they're getting paid for their products, and that's not a good place to be. So, okay, that's that.
So I think this is where we turn it back over to Lisa.
Thank you both so much. That was really a brilliant presentation. And I liked all the diagrams as well. Very, very clear. I suddenly seem to be appeared in a yellow glow. I don't know if you can see my background. Don't quite know what's happened here. So just in terms of conscious of timing, I'm going to handpick just 2 questions. And then Alexander and Craig, if you're comfortable with this afterwards, I'll circulate the other questions and perhaps we can provide a written response statement or some links to useful sites to those people afterwards. So not sure quite, because I know it's not your both area of expertise, but one of the questions that I've got here has just come up about, we haven't touched on managing currency risks right now. And I just wondered if you wanted to touch a little, that you could touch a little bit just on that as a side note, because there's obviously risk exposure right now, particularly in international trade, they've said.
Yeah, that's obviously an issue, especially if your balance sheet is in a currency that's different than what you're selling or buying in. And that's becoming very, very difficult for a lot of suppliers. One option would be to go to your bank and see about setting up a multi-currency account. I think you can't get them in every country, but you can get them certainly in the U.S. and most of Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. And ask if you can set up a multi-currency account, because that would allow you to receive proceeds in a currency different than what you may be selling in, and it has a lot of other flexibilities that are built into that. So that would be one piece of advice that I would have. Also, I mean, you can see about hedging. That's pretty expensive especially for small businesses that try to hedge their exposure. But it's worth going to your bank and say, hey, I'm going to be receiving 200,000 euros next month, and my currency is, Sing dollars. How do I manage that? And they do have a set of products that will help you. Unfortunately, I don't think that the situation is going to get easier going forward, especially with the virus and the other economic pressures. But Alex, happy to hear your view too. You're on mute. Alex, you're on mute.
Alex, you're just on mute.
Okay, there we go. I thought it was on mute. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. My only comment, and I agree with you 100% on this, would be that some people will try to use currency volatility as a way to get some upside on their invoices or from a cost perspective. If you're a small business, the cautious approach is really to try to take the volatility out of that currency equation. So unless you can afford to lose a little bit, I wouldn't be playing the upside by trying to get the extra margin on the currency. If you can afford it, take a shot, but then you do it knowing exactly what you're doing. For most small businesses and certainly for micro enterprises, the smart play is to mitigate the volatility and put predictability into that currency equation.
Thank you. So another thing is, what about government incentives in terms of, this is another question, is what about other government incentives or instruments that can support businesses during this time as well?
Speaking as an American, I know that our government has